Nah, everybody, we are back. It is Taped On Launch, Favorite Raiders podcast, Favorite Raiders channel, Favorite Raiders everything. We are back. You guys already know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, subscribe. Hit the like button if you like it. Hit the dislike button if you don't like it. Leave a comment if you like it. Leave a comment if you don't like it. Also follow us on Twitter at the Mark John NFL for me, at mholder95 for Matt, and then of course my man BD at BD Williams 18 for all of that, and then of course pandasups.com, discount code TDL 35% off. Go ahead and use that for pandasups.com. All right, back today we're talking tight ends and defensive line for the draft, which is two positions of need, especially inside. I mean, edge, you can, it's a need.
Let's be real. They need, like, outside of Max Crosby, they need 10 defensive players, as we've said a few times.
Yeah, they need 10. Yeah, exactly. So everywhere they got holes. So we'll probably do some linebackers and stuff later on. But as we rev up to the draft, we got 10 days at this point? 10 days to the draft?
I don't know. I lost count, dude. I just wake up when the sun's up and keep going until the sun's down. At this point, we're in the grind right now, fellas. But yeah, it sounds right.
We're in the grind. 10 days. We're in the grind, man. Like I don't know, Matt. This wide receiver class. Have you got into it? Have you decided to take the dive into the secret part?
I'm standing firm in that the Raiders should not draft a wide receiver, and that I won't watch them. That means they will 1,000% draft one to irk me. But I'm going to stand firm in my protest for just now.
Oh man,
they're probably going to take one.
I think they are. They did too much studying on it. That's why. But I haven't dove into the class. I really haven't, because I've really gotten to all the other positions besides running back and wide receiver, and I guess I'm more protesting on those than actually maybe coming to terms with that they might have to do that. I mean, do they like Zamir White? It's just it's a lot of things I think about sometimes with this draft, because if they don't like Zamir White, then I'm like, maybe you have to draft a running back. And I mean, this would be the class to do it, in my opinion. But
I would hope they'd like the guy their second pick from last year and not give up on him after a year. But then again, who knows? I gotta think they like him a little bit. They liked him at one point. We know that for sure. But
yeah, because I think that might be the secret draft pick too. Maybe in and they got like 10 fifth round picks, so they want to use those. Maybe in the fifth. Okay, I'm okay with that.
I can live with that. I can live with a wide receiver in the fifth too.
Yeah, right. Fifth round wide receiver, I can deal with that. It's just that we we go Marvin Mims at 70. I mean, they like him. They have meetings with him, and then when they flew in Zay Flowers. That's when I was like, oh my god, here we go. This is real. I even text you back, but it's
I remember.
But, like, this is the fourth guy, man. I don't know what are we doing here. This is a lot of studying. So
yeah, it's a lot of smoke screens.
I hope so. Let's hope some smoke if they could go crazy. But we're talking tight ends today, tight ends and defensive line. So we talk some, I'm going to do Washington, Zach Kuntz, and, Luke Schoonmaker, and then, of course, little Michael Mayer, which I think is a trade down candidate if the Raiders decided to, because I feel like he's just I just feel like they really like him, because he's just kind of everything that they want in a tight end. Everything that they designed for an inline tight end is what Josh McDaniels and David Ziegler are looking for. I mean, he's 249 pounds. They like guys over 250, but I mean, he can eat a sandwich. He'll be fine. And give him a couple sandwiches. He'll be all right.
Another gallon of water.
Give him a gallon of water, some sandwiches. He'll be all right. But I mean, he fits everywhere else. He runs the 4.7, which is weird. They don't draft guys who don't run 4.7s, which I never drafted tight end under 4.7, besides Gronk. But when Josh McDaniels is there, but they drafted Gronk, and Aaron Hernandez kind of broke that too, a little bit. But Michael Mayer, Michael Mayer, gotta get that right all show. It's Michael Mayer. He ran a 4.7, and he's 250 pounds, and he can block, and he can run routes. So I definitely did a little breakdown of him. And then we're going to be talking defensive line as well. Just going over with Matt. He's good. That's his thing over at Bleach Report as well. So he's going to be our defensive line specialist for the day because I think there's some guys inside that are intriguing. And there's also some guys outside that are intriguing, and especially a player that me and Matt are a little higher on, and Myles Murphy, than the consensus. For some reason, he's just falling, and I kind of get it, but But any other news on the side that's happening with the Raiders that we should talk about, Matt? Is anything else really happening?
I mean, I feel like it's been pretty quiet, like news story wise. The only other thing that came out was like they're not like heavily engaged in talks with Josh Jacobs, which I don't think is terribly that big of a deal because obviously draft's the primary focus, and the whole point of franchise tagging him was to buy a little bit more time. And I mean, who knows what's going on with that situation? I mean, of the 3 running backs that got tagged, Jacobs being one of them, Saquon Barkley, and Tony Pollard, only one of them has signed the tag at this point, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. It won't be at like the OTAs or whatever that they have like right after the draft for the veterans. But again, nothing that's been too bad. I feel like it's been pretty quiet lately. They had Jalen Carter in for a visit, which kind of was telling. I mean, at very least, do your homework on the guy kind of deal. But I don't know. I still get the feeling that 1, I don't think he'll be there at 7. And 2, it's just the PR move on that one would be a tough one for them to swallow. But it could happen. He could be a hell of a player. That is for sure.
Oh man, they draft Jalen Carter, man. I don't know. I feel like they have to maybe move him in with Max Crosby. I don't know what they need to do with that, but I think they have to figure that out. Kind of make some kind of situation with that. But I mean, the quarterback thing, of course, is the interesting part. Michael Lombardi, what he said was kind of interesting because I really feel like that everything he says comes a little bit from the Raiders. So, it's gonna be interesting to see what quarterbacks fall to them and what they do in that situation. Because I think that, they did a lot of studying on those guys. Do they still trade up to 3 to try to take one? I think it's going to be interesting to see how they move on draft night. Do they trade back if that guy doesn't? One of the quarterbacks they like, they feel like is going to get taken. Do they trade back or do they stay at 7? It's going to be interesting to see how they move. That's what I'm interested to see.
What was was it the report that like they're only going to trade up for Stroud or Young, or was it that they were only trading? I can't remember what it was because that was one big thing. Like,
so Tom McShay said that they only like Stroud or Young, right?
Right.
Right, and that's the thing. I know they love Bryce Young because Bryce Young runs their system, and it's really easy for him to come in and run it. And Nick Saban and that connection and all they have with Alabama, I'm sure they really. Yeah, exactly. Bill O'Brien. They could talk to Bill O'Brien about him and figure out some things about him and all that stuff. So I know they're really high on Bryce Young, but I don't know what Michael Lombardi said about CJ Stroud. I've never heard anybody else say that. So that's why it's like, did that come from the Raiders? Because everybody else is talking how great and CJ Stroud is personality wise, and here comes Michael Lombardi. So in the last, I heard like last time when some Lombardi boys, some of his little boys, his sons, worked for the Panthers, he was just basically snitching on the Panthers draft plans. So I don't know about that. We'll see how they feel about these quarterbacks and see if any of them fall, what the Texans do. That's kind of what I'm looking up to with this draft. But we're going to talk these other positions just in case they decide they love Jimmy G, and because if they trade back, I think they're going to take one of these edge guys. I think Myles Murphy might fall, right? And then, right, which I think is crazy at that point. It's just interesting, I see people break him down, but teachers. All right, let's just get into defensive line. Let's just get started there. Let's do it. Let's get into these defensive line guys. Matt, let's start with Myles Murphy. Kind of give us your breakdown of him, what you think he does really well, whatever he needs to work on, because that is a guy who, if they did trade down, just the way the draft is going, if they say like the Titans, I think are 11, they decide they want Will Levis, they want to jump over the Falcons or whatever. Yeah. Eagles.
Maybe the Eagles want a D lineman. Maybe if the Eagles want maybe if the Eagles are big on Wilson or something like that, they can trade down to 10 and nab up Myles Murphy. I mean, that's to me is like a dream scenario as a Raider fan who loves the draft, who's a big fan of Myles Murphy. if they can trade back and get more picks and get a guy that I have rated pretty highly and I have graded as a top 10 player in this draft class, like I'd be absolutely stoked. I think one of the biggest things that I keep harping on with Myles Murphy that I feel like is getting kind of lost is like Clemson would play him at 3 tech or like inside shade of the tackle at least. And then the next play, put him out at outside linebacker and drop him into coverage. I don't know how many guys you've seen that have been able to do that can, one, be big enough to play inside and hold their own against the run, and then 2, be athletic enough to drop in coverage. Not saying that that's what he's going to do in the NFL, but just from an athletic and trait perspective, that's what he can bring to the table. And that's the type of athlete he is. And then at his pro day, he went off and showed it. Unfortunately, tweaked his hammy at the combine and didn't get to show out at that event. That was really when I was hoping he would start to get some more steam. But he ran like a 4.51. I think he told me what it was, like 270 pounds. Like, come on. Like, let's not overthink this guy. This guy is an athlete. This guy moves well. And he's going to be able to do so many things for you. You can play up and down the line of scrimmage. You want to put Chandler Jones and him on the field at the same time. Like I said, you could probably play him at 4-eye a little bit, maybe 3-8 technique on some pass rush situations. And what he's really good at too is he's really good at being like the looper in line games, which is part of where his athleticism goes. Like if you watch him, he takes not only what I like to look for when I look at defensive linemen at that. So when they're moving laterally, are they moving laterally? Are they just moving laterally? Like they're not losing ground? Or are they losing ground, or are they gaining ground while moving laterally? If you can gain ground while moving sideways, you're a pretty damn good athlete, and that's exactly what he can do. And like that's something that you just add to your pass rush where, hey, say it's not working, let's call a stunt with Myles Murphy, and maybe we can get him as a free rusher. And again, he's moved so efficiently, he's going to test offensive line's ability to pass off and pick up pass rushers.
Yeah.
As far as moves on his own, he's the best at turning speed to power. Like, he's a fit, like I said, 270 pounds that runs a 4.5. Trust me, offensive tackles aren't going to want to take that dude in the chest when he puts his outside foot in the ground. That's kind of one of the big things, though, that I think he does need to work on is he doesn't have a ton of moves outside of that. Like he'll show some flashes, like he had like a decent rip move, decent outside swim that he could win with, but it was never consistent. Like he was best as a pass rusher when he was physically dominant and turning speed to power. And I think that's kind of where some people have started to turn off his game, where he's not a guy that's going to come in here with, hands like a ninja that can swipe away and hand fight and win around the edge like consistently. Like he's going to have to work on that. But we were talking about a little bit before the show. He kind of reminds us a little bit of Rashawn Gary, but with better production than Rashawn Gary had at Michigan, where like Rashawn Gary was a freak athlete who, again, just didn't have the stats that he needed to. And Gary, I mean, he got hurt this last year, but he's been able to figure it out a little bit. And I think that's kind of like how Myles Murphy can go, where, okay, maybe year one isn't the smoothest transition, but once he gets a couple pass rush moves, that athleticism is going to take over and he's going to end up being one heck of a player. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think about him? I know you're high on him too.
Yeah, I really like Myles Murphy. To be honest, the more tape I watched on him, I really liked him over the guy we're going to talk about next is, Tyree Wilson, because when you're that big and you run a 4.5 and you have that kind of tape, it's not like it's bad tape. You could say it's not like maybe top 10 tape overall, but based on the athleticism and him having good film, I think that's a top 10 pick. I mean, if Trayvon Walker, let's say this, if Trayvon Walker goes number 1 in the draft, and you have basically kind of a similar athlete, Myles Murphy is similar from a size perspective, speed. They both ran 4.5s at 270 pounds, right? I mean, maybe Walker's a little bit over 270 pounds is at the combine, but I mean, being 266, I mean, what's the difference? It's like I said, give him a sandwich. Just I was talking about earlier, give us some sandwiches. I'm sure he'll get to 270 with a good weight program. So, and just that athleticism, I mean, that's what wins the NFL is athletes, having the best athletes, because you can coach him up. And if he has the work ethic, then he's going to make it happen. And, it might not be year one, but you're going to see some guys who just can't block him. There's going to be some tackle in the league that he's just going to blow past.
Yeah, for sure.
Happen, right?
For sure. I mean, like I said, like he's fast enough that he can win around the edge, and he's fucking strong enough that he can go through your chest too. So that's a pretty good combination to have. I mean, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't get why we're overthinking this guy a little bit, but to me, he's a heck of a player.
Yeah, because just seeing what Daniel Jeremiah thinks of him, he just keeps falling. He just keeps falling. I feel like he's so much higher when it started, and he just.
And he's got Keon White.
Move.
DJ's got like Keon White, who was the surprise green room guy ahead of Myles Murphy. I think I saw in his last. Like Keon White's 4 and Myles Murphy's 5. But I mean, all respect to DJ, he knows more about football than I've forgotten or anything, or however that saying works. He's forgotten more than I know. There we go. Now I'll get it right on the second time there. But I was shocked at that. I'm like, Keon White, the guy who's played the position for 2 years, is all of a sudden ahead of him. But yeah, move on to Wilson.
Yeah, let's move on to Tyree Wilson, who I do like Tyree Wilson. I think Tyree Wilson, the reason why I like Tyree Wilson, what I always say, I feel like he complements Max Crosby well. I think that's the only thing that I really, because if we didn't have Max Crosby, I would be like, okay, you need to draft Myles Murphy if you're going to draft a defensive end edge rusher that high, right? Just for the athleticism perspective. But if you draft Tyree Wilson, I can see how he can fit and win with a player like Max Crosby. So what are your thoughts on him? I mean, a lot of Raiders fans, they've heard my thoughts on him a lot. So what are your thoughts, Matt, on his game?
Outside of Will Anderson, I think Tyree Wilson is probably the most physically dominant pass rusher in this draft class, and he might even be a little bit better than Will Anderson in that regard. Like we were talking about it before, like he has plays with that long arm with his 35 and whatever inch arms that he has, where I just don't know what you do if you're an offensive tackle. Like he just puts it in your chest. There's one against Texas that like sticks out in my mind, where he just puts his hand on the guy's chest and the tackle's sitting there like T-Rex arms, like trying to hold on and for dear life and stay upright. And there's just nothing you can do. And at the end of the day, that's one of those things where it's like, obviously you can't teach that. You can't make a guy be Gumby and have longer arms or anything like that. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is he's just physically imposing. He has a lot of natural gifts that, again, you just can't teach that. We're going to help him transition to the next level. My two biggest things with him are, one, he's not the athlete that Myles Murphy is. I wish they both could have tested at the combine so we could have gotten like a one-on-one comparison. But like to me, just watching them on film, like it's very clear who the better athlete is. And I think one of the ways you tell that is the bend at the top of the rush. Like there are plays where Wilson where like he will miss a sack because he doesn't quite have that elite bend. Not to say that he's bad at it per se and just stiff as hell. But when we're talking about two guys who are going to be top 10, top 15 picks, one of them is more than the other in that sort of evaluation. And the other thing too is this foot injury that's been lingering for him for a while. I believe I'm not sure, so I probably shouldn't say this. Don't quote me on this or don't set this in stone. But I believe this is also the second time he's had a foot injury. We know he's at least had one, and this one has lingered since the season. I remember when the season ended, he said, "I'm going to be ready for the Senior Bowl." Senior Bowl comes, he's not ready. Then he said, "At the Senior Bowl, I'm going to be ready for the Combine." Combine comes, he's not ready. Finally, like Dr. James Andrews, which is almost like a curse word or a frightening word whenever you hear that guy's name coming around with athletes. Like, obviously, like he had a major surgery. Obviously, because he had a major surgery, finally clears him. And I mean, I don't know. He still hasn't had his pro day or anything like that. We still don't have any testing numbers on this guy. But this is a guy that you're probably going to want to put 10 pounds on to have him play a little bit more inside to get him up to 280 and add some versatility to his game. And you're doing that on a guy who, again, is coming off a lower body injury at his current weight. That's typically not a great thing from a medical perspective. I'm not a doctor, but I can know if you put a lot of stress on your foot and you break it before, well, if you add more stress to it, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And on that surgically repaired foot, that's kind of like gives me a little bit of caution. Again, I wish I could be in the team's room and get their thoughts and hear what the doctors say on the medical side of it, but we won't ever get that. So that's kind of the two things that really kind of make me pause and hesitate a little bit when it comes to Tyree Wilson. Is he's just not that great of an athlete, not that bendy, and two, that injury could be more problematic than what we think right now.
Yeah, and we don't know how athletic he is because my biggest issue with him is his get off is not up to par. It's not up to par, right? And yeah, maybe you can coach that up, watching the football, him getting off, getting some explosion. But I want to know if that's athleticism problem, like if that's what is his 10-yard split, those type of things. That's what I wanted to know from Tyree Wilson. And maybe some teams are getting some private workouts with him. Maybe he's been a little, I don't know. I never heard he's been cleared at all, right? Nothing. So that's what I would want to know is how athletic he is. But I just wouldn't be too mad if the Raiders took him at 7. I just wouldn't be that mad about it. I would just because like I said, I think that kind of power guy, and he could push the pocket and stuff like that against some defensive against some left tackles or whatever. And here comes Max being Mr. Motor, right? And he has a great motor, and he plays a run really well. He's a very smart player, and and those type of things. And you could move him inside, like I said, like maybe on third downs, you can have him, Chandler Jones, and Max Crosby on the field at the same time and move him inside and let him do some things there. But I'm with you on the bend and things like that. Those are kind of the weaker parts of him. It's just it's the athleticism just isn't there. And when you want a 15 sack pass rusher, those guys are the best athletes in the league.
Typically those are going to be the better athletes. Again, I think I said this earlier. Like Tyree Wilson is what Raider fans, including myself, wanted Cleveland Farrell to be. But at the same time, he has a lot of the same like negatives you could say about Cleveland Farrell, where it's like maybe it's a little bit cautious because, again, we're talking about a top 10 pick on a guy that isn't a great athlete. That's typically not, the combo you're hoping for. You don't normally want that guy to be the freaks of the world. Like, again, Myles Murphy is.
Yeah. Cleveland Farrell did get a lot more snaps last year with this regime than he did the previous year with Gus Bradley. So, maybe they kind of like that guy. And maybe just looking at like Olajari, Olajari wasn't Olajari had better bend than Wilson for sure. But, when you look at, that's somebody they drafted the Giants when he was over there. So, but he wasn't the greatest pass rusher, like with bend and all that stuff, in my opinion. I think his brother has a little bit more better bend than he does. So.
Oh, Aziz? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, yeah. I'm a big BJ Ojulari fan. I'm a big fan of his game, too.
Yeah. Side note, like, what do you think about him against the run? Because that's my thing. I just can't.
It's not great. Like, he definitely needs to get better. Like, that's why I don't have that's why we're not talking about him with a Myles Murphy. But he does have some room for growth, and I think he can get stronger. So I think he can get better at it. But yeah, it's not ideal, I guess is the way to put it. But the one thing I do like about him, the one thing I do like about BJ, like to get on a little bit of a tangent, is that he can win both ways. Like he can win around the edge against a tackle that's got slower feet, and has enough strength and good enough at turning speed to power that he can go through somebody's chest too. Like you watch his games, like he varies his pass rush plan, and he's a little bit more cerebral, I think, as a rusher than his brother was.
Yeah, for real. That's what I like. I like that he's got all those moves. Even you talk about Darnell Wright was talking about him versus Will Anderson, and said that Will Anderson was actually maybe a little bit easy for him to game plan because Olajari had more moves.
Him and Darnell Wright and BJ Ojulari, that was my like favorite matchup to watch between those two guys. Those guys just went at it all game, and they both took shots. It was a prize fighter fight. But to get on a little bit of a tangent.
Yeah, right there. All right, let's go move into inside. We got Mazi Smith, who I've talked about did a mock draft. I had the Raiders taking Mazi Smith in the second round. I like Mazi a lot. What are your thoughts on him, Matt?
I think you're definitely higher on him than I am. I don't know if I think it's just maybe it's a personal bias thing. Like I'm definitely lower on him than a lot of people seem to be. But like the fact that he was like the Feldman freak, like I was expecting like, all right, this guy's going to be like friggin' dominant. And he had reps where you're like, okay, yeah, now I can see where you are. Now I can see why you bench close grip bench press 550 pounds and run like a 4.9 or whatever it is at 330 pounds. And then there's about 10 reps from like, are you on the field? like where are you? You just disappeared around here. And it's just like, it got frustrating where it's like, all right, you should be physically dominating these dudes every single play. Why aren't you? Like, there is no reason why you should not be dominating. And like, again, he showed the flashes, but it just wasn't consistent enough for me to be like, this guy's a surefire prospect. This guy's like a guy that's going to be coming into the game and changing it. Now, I think a little bit of it too is I feel like he probably shouldn't be playing nose. Granted, maybe a little bit further outside, just which he did at Michigan a lot. And I think that hampered his ability to like really be productive as a pass rusher, at least again on a consistent basis. But he is a guy like that, like I've even had to catch myself like on Twitter or whatever, like seeing these clips and like, what am I missing? I'm like, oh yeah, when I look at it one play, like this guy's of course going to look great. I need to remember when I was watching, they're sitting there and being like, brother, can we be a little bit more dominant? Can we kick this guy's ass 2 plays in a row, like instead of just one? So yeah, I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you the game that you see a lot, probably the Ohio State game, because that tape is pretty nice. That's some great tape from Mazi Smith. But if you watched him against Steve Avila, it's a little different. Steve Avila did really well against him. I mean, Mazi won a couple of times, but Avila didn't really have that much of an issue with him, and that kind of, especially in the run, which I don't like. That's my thing with Mazi Smith is, I mean, you're 337 pounds. I just really feel like you should be a better run defender. I mean, go ahead.
And I feel like you can say the same as a pass rusher. It's like, man, the thing that you can't ignore with him is like, man, I feel like you should be a lot better than you are, but you aren't.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about a 337-pound guy getting pushed around, in the run. And that's my thing with Mazi Smith. And it's like, man, I can't put you. Can I put you at nose? Because, I mean, that's a nose's main job. You can talk about they pass, rush pass, that's fine, whatever. Their main job is to play the run, kind of, set the tone inside. And if my nose guard is a pass rusher, I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about that as much. But, so does he lose weight? Is he a 3 technique? So,
and I mean, that's the thing that's
in. But go ahead, man. Sorry.
I was going to say, that's the thing that is nice about Mazi is you can be like, okay, maybe he's not a nose, but he's athletic enough that maybe we can try him at 3 tech. So when you're talking about a second or third round pick, those are the guys that I have no problem taking a flyer on. The guys that's again, betting on athletes, betting on a freak of an athlete, a literal freak of an athlete. So that's kind of the intriguing part about him is okay, yes, he hasn't reached his potential yet. He also may have been playing out of position. You also have versatility with him, with his athleticism. So you can get creative with them. It's just a matter of are you going to be able, if you're a defensive line coach and I just didn't tell him anything about his background, I don't feel like they would be that into him. You know what I mean? Just by watching his tape, it's what are you going to trust a little bit more? Are you going to trust the consistency or the lack thereof on tape, or the measurables, which always is a fine line when it comes to the draft?
Yeah, for sure. The tape versus measurables, because some teams they stick to that, man. If he hits those measurables, they're fine. We'll figure it out. We'll coach him up. And maybe that's how people feel about Mazi Smith. But I mean, there's not a lot of buzz around him too. So that's why it's interesting. What the Raiders will do at 38 kind of intrigues me a little bit, because it's a weird spot, and there might be a good player that falls to them. Ika from Baylor.
Yeah, I feel like this is where I'm going to have to go with my sales job a little bit, because you're not the biggest Ika fan from what we've talked about in the past, huh?
He is a player that, you told me he had a lot better tape in his junior year. So, from his senior tape, I think he has ability to become a really good player. But I just think he wasn't as consistent versus the run either for me. That's kind of the thing. I wish he would be a little bit more consistent there, just because how big you are. But
yeah, I felt like this past year he kind of got a little lazy, and I did get excited at the combine when he weighed in at 335 instead of 360 pounds, which was what he was listed at last year, which was just way too big because it killed his quickness. Then again, he went out and didn't test well. Not that I'm terribly concerned about a nose tackle's testing, but it's a guy where I'm okay, I've been saying he's more athletic than what he let on last year and didn't exactly, or put up underwhelming numbers at the combine. So wasn't exactly thrilled about that. I've actually dropped him a little bit and kind of softened my stance on him. But I do think, again, you got to go back to the junior tape. It's hard to move a 340-pound dude, no matter what level of football you are playing. He is a guy that can be a space eater. And again, he can be a good athlete for his size when he's in shape and when he's motivated. I don't know what happened this past year at Baylor, if he just stopped working out or what. He did look like he kind of got a little bit fatter in those jerseys or whatever. And again, hopefully drop that down and someone got in his ear and is helping him out on that end. But there are plays where it's outside zone and he's running his feet and has the agility to avoid getting reached, and then recognizes the running back cut back and sticks his outside foot in the ground, toss it, has the strength to hump the center by and then go make the play. When I saw that, I'm like, this is a guy that can eat up gaps and against inside runs and do that against outside zone. That's a hell of a run defender to me, where I was super impressed with him. I didn't have many qualms with him as a run defender. As a junior, his pass rush was impressive. Yeah. There were times when basically anytime anybody left them single blocked, his eyes, you could almost feel it. His eyes were lighting up, and he would just walk the center back like that. What was that Jordan Davis clip against Cam Jurgens over the summer, where they're just nothing they can do. Like, again, when you're 350 pounds and can get off the ball like he can, there's not a whole lot you can do to defend against a guy like that. And I mean, just a massive human beings that I think could really take over Andrew Billings' role, which I feel like is an underrated loss for the Raiders that no one's really talked about this offseason, where Andrew Billings was one of the few good run defenders on that Raiders defensive line. And now they have Jerry Tillery and Bilal Nichols, who I think everyone knows our feelings about those two guys. And everyone knows that those two guys can't really stop the run. Or if you can pick up Ika in the second or third round, probably the third round at this point, just based on where he's projected to go, like, that's a guy that can solve a problem for you and fill a literal massive need now that Billings is in Chicago, and really probably step in as the best run defender in the defensive tackle group for the Raiders on day one.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, he definitely is a nose tackle for sure. I mean, he kind of would fit that mold. And Neil Farrell Jr. really didn't show anything last year. I mean, overall, I mean, I guess there's some. I don't know. There really wasn't anything there. I was kind of really disappointed the way he played. So it'd be interesting to see how they feel about him going into year two. Because if they feel good about him, they might not even look at some of these bigger guys because he is supposed to be that guy, right?
That's what he's supposed to be, the space eater in the middle.
Yeah, right. The way he played and his athletic profile, I think he got like a 1 relative athletic score.
Are we talking about Farrell?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hilariously bad. It's legitimately, like, I don't know what it is, but it's like one of the worst in the NFL.
Yeah, but I love this tape, but that just goes back to the NFL. It's all about athleticism. So because it was really bad. But so do they look to replace him? I think those guys are two players that I know maybe you think could develop into that. More Ika, in my opinion, you could see him becoming more of that nose guard and winning and maybe becoming more dominant in the NFL, because even in the senior tape, there's some games where you could see the dominance of him playing in the run, but just some games I don't know, maybe he just wasn't engaged. I don't know. Yeah, but that's for NFL teams to figure out, not me. They got to do that deep dive and interview stuff. So, and
it was like a weird year for Baylor overall, so I wonder if that played a factor into it too. But yeah, it was disappointing to like see him be so like dominant as a junior, and then just kind of like cakewalk through his senior season. I did have RAS pulled up, so I looked up Neil Farrell's score. What did you think it was? You said 1. Okay. What did you think? What did you think it was? 1.86.
Yeah, 1.
I mean, less than 1, yeah. Yikes. But hey, guy can play football.
That's what always scared me about it. That's a terrible score. Good God.
And that, I don't mean to hate on the guy, because again, I do like him as a player. He has a 0.86, but his like size measurables are like green in the very good category. So he's getting a boost from his size with that RAS score. Also only hit 18 reps on the bench press.
Yeah, that was the
interesting. But all right, should we wrap up here with my guy? All right, brace myself. Tuli Tuipulotu from USC. Hopefully I nailed that. Hopefully any of our Polynesian listeners can correct me on that or pat me on the back. But we'll go with Tuli for the rest of the show. For those of you who don't know, defensive lineman out of USC. My biggest gripe with Tuli is actually has nothing to do with him. It was the fact that USC listed him at 290 pounds. And I looked at him and was like, damn, that is the leanest 290 I've ever seen. And then he weighs in at the combine at 266. So thanks for making me look stupid, USC. I'm going to send you a postcard, Lincoln Riley, for making me look like a giant idiot. But another guy that's like similar to Murphy, where like he was used up and down the line at USC. I mean, they would put him at nose a few times, put him at edge, put him at some 3 technique, even would have him play off ball and then blitz. A guy that's a really good athlete, moves really well, probably at his best when he's slanting and gets his movement skills down, also has pop in his hands. He's a guy I really like in the second round. The biggest thing is, again, him only being 266. I literally had to change his position from defensive line to edge because I'm like, you cannot play inside at that size. Like, that's just not going to work, right? So that was my biggest qualm with him, is like kind of a little bit of a, where do you play him? Because he's even got to get put on some weight if he's going to play defensive end. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of the one drawback with him. But another guy that's been super productive. I want to say he led the country in sacks maybe last year, or was tops. I think he ended up having like 13, 15, something like that. So super productive. Again, good athlete who can play in multiple spots. Kind of the theme with a lot of the defensive linemen in this class. All the guys except for the 2 nose tackles we talked about today. Can be a guy that can be a stand-up linebacker or maybe even a 4-eye technique if he has some size. But yeah, another guy like in the second round.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't watched Tuli yet. I'm trying to find some film. I need to get some into his film a little bit before, we get to this draft, because it could be an option for the Raiders, because it was funny when he came in at 266. I was like, wasn't he able to see like 294 or something like that?
Yeah. It was hilariously frustrating where I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, I've almost got to redo your entire scouting report now in projection, because you either, because a 34-pound, or what was that, 24-pound weight loss? Oh, damn, dude, that's impressive. I don't know what you've been doing, but again, should have gone with my gut. I should have known when I was like, when I was watching him, like, that is a lean 290. I don't know if I've ever seen a dude at 290 pounds with a 6-pack besides like Lane Johnson, but
I know. Or Aaron Donald, I guess.
I guess so. Aaron Donald would be the other one, but
they're both freaks. One guy, before we move on to tight ends, is Kancey. I know there's going to be a lot of questions about Kancey in the comments. They want to know, a lot of Raiders fans, they like him. What are your thoughts on him?
I'm going to say this. I could be very wrong about Calijah Kancey, but I am okay with that, because I am not betting on a guy that is that much of a size outlier. If he turns out to be the next Aaron Donald, be the next, undersized defensive tackle from Pitt that ends up being an all-pro, tip of my cap to him and happy for him. But I am not going to bet that that's going to happen again, just because, and part of it too is like, Donald at least had like decent arm length. Donald had 32 and a half, I want to say, arms. Kancey's 2 inches shorter than that. And part of his problem is he can't play against the run. And if you can't get extension against offensive linemen in the NFL, like, no matter how quick you are, if they can catch you, you're screwed. You know what I mean? Like he's so reliant on his quickness to be a good run defender that I just don't know how he's going to be able to survive and be an every down player. And those are the type of players you want in the first round. If he's a second round guy, if he's picked 38, hey, no problem with that. And that's the other thing that's frustrating too, is like, I do all this shit talking about the guy like I hate him, when in reality, it's not that. I think he's a second round player, which is a fine player. Like, I think he probably has on our Bleacher Report Big Board. I think he's probably he's definitely a top 40 player, I believe, on our latest Big Board. So it's not that I think he's a bad player. It's just, I don't know how many situational pass rushers as 3 techs are you going to take in that high in the first round, no matter how bad the draft class is, to where I just can't bet on a guy that I don't think can anchor. Like, if you watch him take on a double teams, it's pathetic. Like, he's screwed. He gets wheeled out of his gap. And so I don't know. What do you think about Kancey?
So I'm going to give you this question. What do you think if they moved him outside? Do you think he could play? Do you think he could play edge, or should he play edge in the NFL?
As like when you say edge, you talking like outside the tackle or like a 4-eye and
like a Melvin Ingram type of thing?
Melvin Ingram. I mean,
like you move him around everywhere. Like you could, like kind of how the Chargers. Sometimes he played defensive end. He played inside. He played outside. But Melvin Ingram, he can never play the run to save his life. So, right?
I mean, maybe.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I think he could. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I think the biggest difference was Melvin Ingram was 250 and Calijah Kancey's 280.
But I mean, the athletic profile is still really good at that size.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Maybe outside. The guys are a little lighter. Maybe the arms are longer. I mean, that's what killed me. I saw those arms. It's like, no way.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Is like, when you get further out in the edge, now his arm length becomes an issue as a pass rusher. Like, you know what I mean? Like, now those tackles are making contact with him first because he physically cannot. So that would be, I guess, the biggest qualm that you kind of brought up that I didn't think of initially, is like, maybe, he can do it athletically, but I don't know what Melvin Ingram's arms are. But again, with 30-inch arms, like, that's hard to work with. Like, I wish I could run the data on it, but I could guarantee we would not find a whole lot of defensive lineman with
he's 1 percentile. He's 1
percentile. Yeah. Like that's just like that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you were great in college, you were a great player. Those are the things that matter when you come to the NFL. Like the reason why Aaron Donald's able to stick around too is Aaron Donald could, one, anchor against the run, and two, his arm length just crossed the threshold that he could be able to do it. He didn't have the height, but he had the arm length, and that's the biggest thing.
His arm length is 46 percentile, so he's below average, but it's not that below average.
Yeah, exactly.
And also,
you're talking.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just saying, you're talking Calijah Kancey. You're talking about an outlier of an outlier. Like you are taking a big gamble on that guy if you want to draft him.
And the last word I'll say in that, Aaron Donald's tape was just it's Jalen Carter's. If you go back and watch Aaron Donald in college, it's Jalen Carter. So that's the difference, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Nice.
Because if Aaron Donald was an inch taller, I remember watching the Senior Bowl on TV when he went to the Senior Bowl and he just was kicking everybody's. It was incredible. So I think that the level of film too with Kancey and Donald is just totally different.
Not the same.
Yeah. Nobody said Donald couldn't play the run. We all just saying, well, he's short. That's all they said.
Yeah.
And he still went 14. Because if he was 2 inches taller, he's top 5 pick based on that film.
Easily. If he could pass the eye test a little bit more. Yeah.
Just go watch it after this. Just pull it up on YouTube real quick.
I'll pull it up. I was gonna say I was a little before I was like really into it, so I don't quite remember Aaron Donald in college, but yeah, like that was I can believe it. I can believe it from everything I've heard.
It's nuts, man. All right, so let's get into these tight ends. We went on the defensive line, but let's get into these tight ends. I kind of went over the guys who I went over, but these are some of the guys I thought were fits. I kind of covered some of these guys in an article I wrote, but check these out. We're gonna start with Mr. Washington here. All right, can you see him, Matt?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, hold on. All right, so we're starting with Mr. Washington, who's just a pretty damn good blocker. Let's just say this, and I think this is a guy that could be an option at 38 if they decide to go this route. So you start with on this one on split zone. You just see the physicality. You see how huge he looks on film, and you see the push that he gets. It's just this is consistent.
And that play
guys.
too.
It's not like that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's against Brenton Cox Jr., who, if Brenton Cox Jr. wasn't a little bit of if Brenton Cox Jr. didn't have character issues, would probably be like a 3rd or 4th round pick in this class, and he just physically dominated him.
Oh wow, yeah, it's just consistency too. It's consistent. Just here you go one more time. This time's a split zone action, and now we're gonna get him in pass protection, right? And you see he's pretty good in pass protection as well. I mean, he's not really the best for him, but he is a tight end, right? But I mean, that's pretty damn good for a tight end right there, right? You can see his feet. It's almost like if you kind of wanted to work with him, you could maybe even find a way to get him to play left tackle. I've seen Pete Prisco joke about that, but
I mean, he can function like a 6th offensive lineman, like on PFF, like he had. I mean, it wasn't a huge sample size, but he didn't allow a single pressure, I don't think, throughout his entire college career. So he's a freak.
Yeah, this one, he looks even bigger on this film against Missouri. But here's a split zone action again, and I mean that guy's going nowhere. So I I know the Raiders are gonna love this guy. I bet it's SEC big tight end, and we'll get into him receiving in a second. But here's another block. Look at him seal this one off on the down block. Watch one more time. Nope, just seals him easy. I mean, he's not getting the buzz he was earlier. I feel like he's kind of died down. And then as a receiver, I think he's a little stiff.
Mm-hmm.
I think you agree with that, man. He's a little stiff. We'll kind of get into it, but now you see the yak that he He has great hands though. I saw on PFF he has like a 2 drops.
Well, he's got like 13-inch hands or something crazy like that. 11-inch, sorry. He got freaking a first baseman's mitt on his left wrist.
Yeah. And then you see right here, he can get down the seam. You see the 4.6 speed at this size, and then see his athleticism. He just hops over this tackle.
Yeah, him after the catch is my favorite part about his game as a receiver, because like there's that clip against Oregon where he straight up hurdles a dude at 270 pounds, which is unheard of. But yeah, he's really good after the catch, and he's like a load to try and bring down.
Yeah, exactly. But here you kind of see the stiffness. This is way too many steps in this route. Right? You kind of see that a little bit. He's not really winning. Like how many one-on-ones is he really going to win, right? Like if you don't scheme it up, he's going to be able to beat a safety one-on-one.
Yeah.
You can't just overpower him down the seam, you know? Because then you watch this play, you get him here on the wheel. Right? I mean, he drops this one. This is like one of his only drops. I'm not trying to show it, but you could see the speed of him, his ability to get downfield, right, on that one.
Yeah.
And this is my favorite one against Missouri. This is the same concept, right? Him going on that wheel and him just catching this at his highest point, mossing somebody, and then the safety tries to hit him and it goes further backwards. So this is my favorite one right here. It just shows everything that's the potential of Washington right here. Is just right here.
That was a full 5 yards.
He went backwards, man. It's crazy. All right, next guy is Zach Kuntz. I really like Zach Kuntz. Is basically he's a move tight end because we'll show him blocking in a second. It's just not that impressive. Have you watched Zach Kuntz a little bit, Matt?
I have not. This would be my first time. I've seen clips and stuff, but nothing.
All right, so he's a really good route runner. You see right here the suddenness. He's getting this safety to already commit to him. He's about to kill him on the slant route right there. He's a great route runner.
Damn impressive.
Yeah, so that's one of the best things. You can see some great routes here. And this quarterback too from Old Dominion. I have no idea who this guy is, but he could be anticipating like crazy. Number 11.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, so he's got some talent there, running routes. I mean, it is impressive. You'll see it from this side. Just getting that guy to commit, right? Little head fake is just he's done. Easy win for Kuntz. And against safeties, man, especially this game, they really had a tough time guarding him. You can see he's just smooth. He runs a 4.55, 250 pounds. He's 6'7", just smooth route runner.
Ooh, that was dirty.
Yeah, doesn't waste a lot of space.
I mean, watch the safety like on the top of the route. Like he's purely guessing. Like he goes inside thinking.
Yeah, it's just separation, man.
That linebacker maybe, but yeah.
Yeah. But this is my favorite route right here. He just almost makes this guy fall on this one. You kind of see his ability to win.
Rewind. Go back to right before he breaks too. Right now, half a second later. The other thing too, like I like how he's like attacks the leverage and like right here you can see it. Like he gets to square. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like where like he can like at this point, like this is what I'm talking about when the safeties are guessing. Like you have no idea where this guy's going, and then he has the suddenness on top of it to make you really wrong and create even more separation.
Yeah, and then even the eyes. I love how he uses his eyes. Yeah. He's got the eyes inside. I mean, because what I haven't shown, they ran a lot of dig routes before this, right? So he's selling that dig.
Nice.
And he's doing a great job selling that dig, and then he's right back outside. But the anticipation by this quarterback, who's this QB?
Jesus, yeah.
That was on time. I'm telling you. And then you can see him on this up the seam too. This is where you see the 4.5 speed. He's just running past the safety, right? With the better throw.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe if you track that a little better. Well, you see the ability just to run down the field. It's great speed. But the blocking is you can even see by his build a little bit being 6'7". It's just not going to be the greatest thing for him. And you can see here on this one, he has 20. If he attacks 20, just like most of the tight ends we'll be watching, if he just attacks him right away, but he kind of hesitates, and he doesn't break down, and the guy goes right past him.
Yeah. I mean, put it this way, he's the same height as Darnell Washington, but 15 pounds lighter, so.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, here he is in a little split zone. Right. He'll block, though. He's not scared. He's not scared to block. Is he physical? Did he move that guy at all? No.
Yeah.
But we'll take it, man. We'll take it. Yeah. All right, now this guy I think is probably that fourth round. I know he had a great combine, so I don't know. But Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan is a pretty special talent. I don't know why he's kind of underrated, because he has a great athletic profile and he can block. This is him at fullback, guys. And this is the first play of the playoff against TCU. And this is what Foster Moreau used to do last year, right? Play him at fullback. And then you can be more creative. You don't have to have Jacob Johnson, who we all know they're running the football when he's in the game. So, I mean, you can do some play action, be more creative with somebody like Schoonmaker, because he's just physical. This is what we talk about. Getting in there, making that block.
That was the first play of the game, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching that.
Here he is. Here he is against a defensive end here, and just pancaking him. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of tripping there, but you just see the physicality he brings as a blocker. He's just physical all day. Yeah. It is like that constantly. But I think the most underrated thing that nobody talks about is this guy is fast, and he's a good route runner. And that's what I really like about him, is he's a complete tight end that I think is underrated, and you can maybe be a steal at 100 or something like that. You can find him, because look at me just blow past that safety.
I like too how he uses hands to fight through contact right here from the linebacker. Keep going on his route.
Just he got hurt on this play. He didn't play the rest of the game, but
yeah, I was gonna say this is the play. This is part of the reason why he's why you're talking about him not being that highly touted, because he's been injured. Landing on that shoulder, funny.
Yeah, exactly. But you see the speed here again, right? Like, look at him all the way downfield. For some reason, McCarthy throws here. I don't know why he did. I don't know why he did that, guys. But I mean,
why throw to the open guy when you can throw in a triple coverage?
Don't know what happened there, but you see the speed he has, man, right there. It's just be able to stretch the field. The Raiders run stuff like this all the time. Yeah. He can stretch the field. So I think that's somebody that they could really find that might be a steal. I mean, he's really like a pound the table guy for me, because you see right here, now he's on a choice route, and he just work that kind of choice route like easy, right? And that's what I'm saying. So he could block, he can run routes, he catches the ball well, he's athletic, he's got speed. I don't get it. I don't know I don't know what we need to watch, right? But
yeah,
this is because the safeties.
I think that linebacker is Justin Jacobs too, who's a pretty good athlete in coverage.
Yeah.
Oh no, never mind. Not different guy.
But look what he did to him on that choice route.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's separation, and that's what you gotta like. But my trade down guy is Michael Mayer, right? If they trade down, I just think he's the ultimate fit for what they want at tight end. And he's just a great blocker. You see him here against a defensive end, Myles Murphy, right? Myles Murphy probably did pretty well on that rep. You still see how he's able to get a little bit of push on him there, right? Once again against Myles Murphy, right? He's not losing against Myles Murphy.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. I remember watching this game at Mayer and like being pretty impressed with how he handled Murphy.
Yeah. So here you go.
I will say this about his blocking. I don't know if you noticed this, but he had a few reps where he'd kind of get blown up at the point of attack a little bit against more physical guys. Yeah. other than that, like you said, like a guy that can get the job done, kind of get in the way and stay in the way, which is kind of what you're looking for. Like this rep right here against Murphy again.
Yeah. This is, I mean, the consistent, just consistent blocking, because you see a lot of these tight ends on tape like Laporta and all these guys. Laporta has some good blocks, but is that consistent? You watch one game and he has a good blocks. You watch another one, he's not blocking anybody, right?
Gotcha.
You just see more consistent from there.
Yeah. Oh, he's fired up about that one too. After the play, he started flexing on him and everything.
Well, Mayer's a good athlete too. I think he's a good athlete in space too. You see him, he's jumping over this guy. Maybe not Washington, but he makes it happen. What's the
difference between Mayer and Washington as far as their jumping ability?
Right here, and then you see the route running right here too, man. This is why I really love this route right here. Right, a little arm over, a little push over right there. Maybe a better throw. We have a tight end at Jalen Connors at ASU that this guy's gonna be throwing to, so hopefully he makes better throws than this. Because Jalen Connor will get open. But I'll tell you, up the seam, right?
Yeah.
What the Raiders love, the tight ends up the seam. You can do that. So he's the total package. And I'm just saying, just be surprised if they, some team like probably hopped up, like the Commanders. I know the Commanders they want a quarterback. He pops up because this is a nasty route. This one you kind of see him against Boston College here.
Oh yeah,
quick head fakes. Yeah.
The stem to the outside, sell the inside, because they run the digs a lot, which is another staple of McDaniel's play calling too, and he sold it really well.
Yeah. So I just think to me, he's the most complete tight end in the draft. I know some people might like Kincaid over him. I mean, I don't want to agree with that because Kincaid can't block a soul. So, but I really do like Mayer a lot. I think he's tight end one for me, just wrapping it all up. I feel like he's the best tight end in the draft. So if you trade back and take him, I would not be mad at that because they do need a tight end. I know some people would be like, but I think it'd be worth it, to be honest. Because even with McDaniels and them leave, he's still gonna be good. So, I think he'd be worth it in that direction. But I think they have some options that some guys didn't even show. Like Tucker Kraft hits all the measurables. Who else? I'm trying to think of
Musgrave. I'm curious. Have you watched Musgrave much?
Yeah, I've watched Musgrave. I watched the 2 games that he played.
Yeah.
Say with Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft played 2 games too.
That's right.
But I think Musgrave they're gonna like too. But he's the blocking issues are there with him.
So right? I was gonna say Derek Klassen from Bleacher Report compared him to Darren Waller, and if you look at their numbers too, their testing numbers are pretty similar. Like Waller was a little bit faster because he was a wide receiver, right, and a little bit lighter at that time. And I like he can do that field stretching, but the other way that they're comparable is Waller was never a great blocker, okay at best, and that's exactly what Musgrave is he will get worked in the NFL against a bigger defensive line. You can't the split zone plays you're seeing with Mayer and Darnell Washington that. Those are Austin Hooper's reps if they end up drafting Luke Musgrave. But he is a dude who another guy that can run. I mean, at the Senior Bowl, I think he clocked at 20 miles per hour, was the fastest guy there. Just ridiculous. At 200 and close to 260, I want to say he was 255. And again, you can bring him in and have the role that Darren Waller played, or was supposed to play last year before the injuries, at a 17th of the cost if he's a second round pick making $1 million a year versus $17 million. So
exactly,
I'm a big Musgrave fan, but I definitely like Washington a lot too, and Mayer. Both are studs. I don't know. I kind of I'm torn between Mayer and Washington as my tight end one. I definitely like Mayer better right now, but I just feel like Washington, again, a 6'7" dude who's 270 pounds that is hurtling people. Are you gonna ever find that again? You know what I mean? If you're gonna take a chance on a guy, but yeah, it's this. this draft class, I do feel like for the Raiders is set up pretty well. Where like they're deep at it's deep at cornerback, deep at tight end, deep at like a lot of the positions that the Raiders need, deep at edge rusher, where like deep and linebacker has some like decent players in like the second round, where like they are set up well, but it is definitely an intriguing thing where I think we could be in for a trade back, like you're talking about for that. And if they do get like a mayor or something like that in the first round, like I'm sure Twitter, I mean, no matter what happens, Twitter's going to react the way it does, but I wouldn't hate it. Like you get a guy that again could be a offensive weapon for you guys for a year and replace the one that, you just lost and pick up more picks. Like,
anchor block. I mean, you never really have to take him off the field at that point, that's why I think they'll probably be really high on him. But because you're right, man. I think there's a lot of guys. I mean, they can have a huge run on corner in the third round. They could just literally draft corners. I kind of want them to.
There's probably
in a row.
There's conceivably like 10 corners that they could take on day 2 that could I'm not gonna hype them up too much, but that could probably walk in and start like in week 1 or like at some point in their rookie season. Like you just go look at like the draft boards and like that's like one thing I noticed. Like I was doing a column like I was originally planning on doing like day 3, but then I got to the corners. I'm like, well, there's so many. I'm just gonna split these up in the second and third round because there's just that many of them that there's legitimately like a good amount of guys who you could draft and feel comfortable about in that range. So
I totally agree with that, man. Because the secret though is O-line. I wonder how they're going to do that, how they're going to finagle those draft picks in, because I did a lot of research with that, and they literally drafted an O-lineman like every year. They like do it for fun. So
usually two.
Usually two.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're just like stacking them. A lot of them don't work out, because I was looking at some of these guys like, who's Andrew Garcia? Who the hell is that? And like I remember like Cajuste for West Virginia.
Oh yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah, they drafted him too, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's a great pick" at the time. And they play the undrafted guy. So it's gonna be interesting to see what they do with that, the lineman, man. If they end up taking like a couple linemen somewhere too, I like the line class though. I would not be mad if they take like Chandler Zavala. If they end up getting Zavala in the 4th round or something like that, I'd be happy with that because that's a good player. So
I've seen him getting a lot of hype lately, and like from the stuff I mean, I haven't really dove too deep into the interior O-line class, and probably won't between now and draft day. But like, I've seen like the stuff I've seen, like what I've read from like people I respect, like Dane Brugler. Like I think Brugler said he had something like day 1 or 2 tape, like or whatever. It was Zavala, and I don't know why he's not higher, but he's another guy that like I've seen his name floating around and probably could come in and be good and be a good player.
The whole interior O-line class, I mean, into the 5th round, I think is good. If you get Olu, who I can't even say his last name, from Michigan, you get him, man, and you can get him in the 5th and center, and have maybe a starting center for a while, because that dude's a good player, but he's not getting a lot of buzz around him too. So but we're going long. We're going long here, Matt. Let's wrap it up. The defensive line, tight ends. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We went pretty in depth with the defensive line, which is a big position. Tight end's big too, but we need to play some defense over here. Let's keep it real. So, thank you, Matt, for coming in and breaking down the defensive line for us, and taking the time out to do that. And the listeners enjoy it when you do that. And make sure you check out all of Matt's shit, man, on Bleach Report. Make sure you check it out on silverandblackpride.com. He's putting work in with all those breakdowns, so make sure you guys check those out as well. And then check out what we got in the channel. I just did Clayton Tune, so check up that, run those numbers up with Clayton Tune. He had a crazy throw in that I was like, wow. I didn't know you could play like that, Clayton. So I didn't know I was familiar with your game. So
sorry, young man.
So check that one out, and all the other stuff that we got up there, and all the other draft stuff. So, but we're out of here, guys. Peace.
Man, see ya.